Hello there. Welcome to the first ever video on the Leaf Customs channel. I'm your host Leaf, and with us here today is a beautiful Mazda b2200. Picked it up a little over a year ago for about $5 grand, and I used it as my summer beater to and from work. I was working a kind of construction job at the time. It did just fine, it hauled, all that, but now the engine's blown and I've got to figure out what to do with it. And every time something goes wrong, that's always an open door for new possibility. So let's break down what we're going to do with this thing. The first place I'm going to bring you is to the front of this truck, and you'll see it still has the stock 2.2. I have to say, out of my personal experience, this was not the most reliable engine I've ever had. I've heard stories of them being very reliable and nigh bulletproof, but with me that just wasn't the case. It's actually a second block I'm on, and all 4 of the cylinders read below 40 psi. So it's safe to say this block is pretty screwed, or there's something wrong with the rings. But we're looking to do a bit of an upgrade here. This thing makes a whopping 80-90 horsepower from the factory. For an 88, it still uses a carb, and overall there's a lot of room for improvement, and I've got just the thing. So in the 80s to early 2000s, Mazda had a love affair with pretty much every other car company out there. This shares an engine with the Ford Probe and a couple other Mazda series. The block is shared between a bunch of platforms. So parts are plentiful, you just have to know where and what to look for. So what I'm doing in the engine bay is putting a Kia motor in there. That's right, Kia. So in the mid-90s, Kia bought the machining rights to the F-Series block, and they released the FE3, or the FE dual overhead cam if you're over in Europe or Australia. It was released in a whole bunch of places. They tuned it a bunch down South Africa, but here we only got in the Kia Sportage. I was able to find one, pull it out of a Sportage at Pick and Pull, and it should be going in there. I would show you, but it's off at the machine shop right now, and I didn't think to start making YouTube videos until after that. So I guess you'll see it when it comes back. The other big problem we have with this truck is that the stock suspension is leafs in the rear, like most trucks, and just gas shocks in the front. So the suspension isn't exactly rigid. And on this truck specifically, all the shocks on all 4 corners are blown out. So if we're going to be doing any autocross in this truck, it's going to need a full suspension overhaul and a custom 4-link in the rear, which is our first plan of action. It's going to be a little bit until we get all the parts for the 4-link, and until then we've got some other stuff to do, like pulling the stock engine, getting the bed off, pulling the axle, prepping the 8.8 for all the welding needed, and overall just, you know, giving it a nice clean and probably paint along with the frame. But until then, since I have you for this introduction video, I figured I'd show you the other aspects of this truck that make it kind of special. One of the many reasons I bought this car was because of its beautiful red interior. I think the technical term is burgundy, but as soon as I saw it, I was drawn to it. There's no rips in the seats, the dash is uncracked, the door cards are pristine, and every inch of cloth in this interior is just perfect. So throughout this build, I know a lot of people do weight reduction in their autocross or track builds. I will not be doing that. It's got such a beautiful stock interior that I figured, why would I ruin it? Of course, I'll do the necessary additions, like some racing seats that I'll reupholster to match, and maybe a new steering wheel. But for the most part, this interior is going to stay untouched because I like it the way it is. I figured I'd give you a bit of a more detailed tour of the interior. This is the Cab Plus, so it has a slightly longer wheelbase and just a little more heft to it in general. It's heavier than the regular non-Cab Plus. We've got a set of coilovers in here. We will be doing something with that later. But as you can see, everything is just incredibly functional. It's just beautiful. And I want to be able to still haul people around, so I'm keeping the rear bench seats. The dash is going to stay mostly unchanged with the addition of a tachometer, of course, an air-fuel mixture, and a few other gauges, but I'll make sure to add them tastefully. Eventually, some point down the line, we'll do a custom center console so we can get this plastic piece of junk out of here. But overall, it's staying mostly untouched, keeping the carpet, keeping all of that, because why would you want to ruin this? So that brings me to the question that I'm sure a lot of you are asking. What is the end goal with this beautiful B2200? Well, I want it to be competent on the track and on the autocross course. I want it to be able to handle like a modern sports car and have enough power to do what it needs to do. But I don't need this to be a 1,000 horsepower monster. I don't need it to be a McLaren P1. I need it to be a car that I can daily, that I can go on dates in, you know, drive to and from college in, all the normal stuff you want to do in the car, while being able to take it to the track and have fun in it and have it be an enjoyable, sporty experience. Now, the reason I'm documenting all of this is because I've never done it before. I've never tried out YouTube or, you know, fully documented a build before. And I think it'd be a fun and interesting experience. And I also think there's not a whole lot of information on this swap. The FE3 swap is one of the most popular swaps for this truck, and yet there's not a whole lot of information on it. We know that the motor mounts match up and that the bell housing match up on the stock transmission and frame, but besides that, information is pretty hard to come by. You can dig deep on forums and you can find pretty much any information you need, but it's a big hassle. And I want it to be more accessible for the general public. I want one of you to be able to buy a B2200 and swap it. I want you to be able to have fun in these trucks because they're a great platform to have fun in. They've got a great wheelbase, they're a small little mini truck, and you can't go wrong with a mini truck. There's a reason Ford Rangers, S10s, Toyota pickups, there's a reason they're all so popular. It's because they look cool and they're fun. And I think if I'm able to share some of that with you and make it more accessible, that's a win in my books. I'm not going to be going completely into detail, like a how-to on how to do each thing, but I feel like I will mention any detail that feels important or that is worthwhile noting. A lot of the stuff, like taking the bed off and whatnot, is pretty self-explanatory, but if I run into issues or there's anything that I think is super important and is crucial to the swapping, then I'll make sure to cut away and explain it a little bit so it's easier for you, the viewer, to do this yourself. I plan on doing updates on this truck as much as possible, and for smaller updates you can check out my TikTok. I'll leave a link in the description or something like that. I just post silly videos on there or little stuff about my truck, but all of the main meat of this swap and build is going to be here on YouTube, so stick around. I'll probably have a video up by next week where we take the bed off and we really dig into the whole rear of this truck, mock up the axle, start brainstorming about the 4-link in the rear, and making sure it can handle the power we're putting up front, well, you know, lowering it a little bit and giving it that sporty feel to it. Anyway, with all that being said, I really do appreciate you all for tuning in today, and I can't wait to dig my teeth into this build. I'm really excited to just build it from the ground up and really just touch every bolt on this car. I'm excited to share the process with you, maybe help a few of you swap your B2200 or just provide entertainment. Either way, I'm glad I'm here, and I'll catch you in the next one. Anyway, so before we get started on all that, we have a few other things to do. But I don't want it to lose its dailyability.